Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Sports on the Positive Tip. We have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. I'm joined by Kenny Squared. Kenny, Cleveland consider still is kind of the epicenter there of a few big stories. The white hot Cavaliers now number two in the Eastern Conference. They got hotter than the Knicks. They're hotter than the Clippers. Is there excitement there in Cleveland about the Cavaliers?
Um, Not really, which is kind of weird.
Okay. All right. We're gonna talk NBA, so we'll come back to the Cavaliers. But big news. I mean, it's hard to win one Cy Young award. This guy barely got talked about. Won two Cy Young awards. Announced his retirement. Corey Kluber. His glory days were certainly there with Cleveland. Is there any buzz there in Cleveland about the retirement of Corey Kluber?
I saw a little bit about Corey Kluber, but not a ton. Honestly, the biggest buzz right now is with football.
So,
Browns sweeping the awards there.
so people were pumped up about the Browns sweeping those awards, huh?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get ready to get started, but here's a question I'm gonna start with when we go on the other side. Why is it that the football awards aren't as big as like the baseball or even the NBA awards? I don't know. Although they do a really good job with the whole show and everything. All right, you ready to get this going?
Let's do it.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers. Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, it is Super Bowl weekend, but I want to start with the last night they had the whole NFL awards show. Lamar Jackson got the MVP. And you were mentioning that the big buzz there in Cleveland is that the Browns swept a lot of the other awards, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and I think well deserved. But why is it that it seems to me, this is just me, I could be wrong, that the football awards don't seem as big as the baseball awards? Like we always remember who won Cy Young or MVP. Like if I gave you a year, you'd probably take a moment to think about it, but you would probably remember who won the MVP. You certainly remember when Aaron Judge won it. But football, if I tell you, hey, who was the NFL MVP in 2012? We'd have to definitely look that up. I couldn't even tell you. Why is that?
Well, it's funny you mentioned year. Because you know what came to mind. I'll see if you know this. You know who won the AL MVP in 2006? I believe it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's '06.
No, I don't remember off the top of my head. It'd take me a little bit to think about it, but
I give you a hint. Derek Jeter was second.
Jeter was second that year. Huh. Give me a team.
Minnesota.
Was it Mauer?
No, that's a good guess though.
Someone from the Twins won MVP in 2006, and it wasn't Joe Mauer. Wow, who was it?
Justin Morneau, which shows
Justin
how weird of an award he got
Justin
there.
Morneau won an MVP. I don't remember that. And I'm just contradicting what I said, right? Because we remember the
Well,
baseball one.
but I more remembered it because Derek Jeter should have won it that year and didn't. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
I think one of the biggest reasons is the timing of it. Because with baseball, they usually do it like a week or so after the World Series ends.
right.
Um, NBA, they usually will do it like kind of in that dead spot because there's usually a dead spot like conference finals or finals.
Right.
But like, I don't know, because you would think announcing it when they do
Yeah.
should add a little bit of hype. But I would bet good money that if let's say they did the NFL awards thing, well, I guess next week would be hard because I'm pretty sure it's the All-Star game for the NBA. But let's say like the last weekend in February, people
Right.
would remember it more.
You
And
know,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
um, I think part of it too is like there's usually a lot of discussion. Like if you're talking baseball circles, Like that's all you're talking about is who won the MVP, who won Cy Young. But now, like, yeah, Lamar Jackson won the MVP, Joe Flacco won Comeback Player of the Year, and so on. But it's kind of more of a side note. Everyone's more focusing on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're right. And it highlights my point again, right? Because I couldn't remember Justin Morneau won an MVP. But I think also in the NFL, and this may be true for the NBA too, um, there's usually not a surprise winner. I mean, I can't remember the last time we were like shocked when I mean, we all knew that Lamar Jackson was going to win it. That had been the talk for a while, but the other secondary awards, I had no idea. I think Christian McCaffrey won Offensive Player of the Year, deservedly so. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year. Those I really don't think anybody will remember, but the MVPs, and in the NBA as well. I mean, I guess it was a little drama last year. Was it going to be, Joker or Embiid? But usually in the NFL, it's like a clear cut, winner. Where's that in baseball? They take that year, for instance. I kind of now remember the New York fans and media was in an uproar that Derek Jeter didn't win that year. And it was a surprise. I think everybody thought Jeter was going to win. Well, no, if I remember, I had a big year, big home run and RBI year that year. Um, let's stay with football, but I do like. I'll make this last point. I do like that the NFL puts on that show. I didn't see a second of it, but I've watched a little bit of it in the past, and that it's gotten more and more glitzier, as the years have gone on. The only highlight I saw was that the Prince Andrew came in and announced one of the awards, and they had all this red background and everything. It looked pretty cool, and of course, it's there in Vegas. Um, let's get to the Super Bowl now. So we've got just a couple of days, into the football season, but should be a great game. I'll ask the question that you put in our text chat, and that is the Chiefs or 49ers, who has more at stake here?
Um, it's interesting because it's a weird Super Bowl in the sense that you have Patrick Mahomes, who's like trying to get into the conversation of, is he a top 5 quarterback? Could he be on the GOAT trajectory?
Right.
I've already seen now he's the first quarterback ever to start 4 games before he turns the age of 30, which is incredible. And being 3-1 would be amazing. But it also seems like if he loses, people will be like, well, the 49ers, they have such great weapons. They're also the 49ers favored in the game. So I feel like the Niners have a lot more at stake because I feel like they are on the verge of becoming like the Purple People Eaters in the 70s, the Bills in the 90s, Andy Reid's Eagles in the 2000s. Those teams that were really, really good, always in contention, but could never lock in the Super Bowl. And also not even just them, but specifically Kyle Shanahan, who blew the 11-point lead against these Chiefs a few years ago. Was the offensive coordinator when the Falcons were up 28-3 in the Super Bowl. We know how that ended.
I didn't realize he was the offensive coordinator in that game. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also against the Rams when the Rams won the Super Bowl. In the NFC title game, they also blew a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. So I feel like he has a lot more at stake, say, than like if Andy Reid loses Super Bowl, whatever. He's still like top 5 coach of all time. He's won multiple titles and everything like that.
Yeah.
But people will start to wonder, can Kyle Shanahan make it happen? And 2 different quarterbacks, but they can't beat the quarterback. Yeah. I think they have a lot more at stake.
That's such an interesting take. I hadn't really thought about that. I guess I'm going to agree with you then that the 49ers, because the way you compared them, because they've had deep runs in the playoffs for a while now. And, they did blow that lead, 3-4 Super Bowls ago. And they have definitely been one of the front runners here for a few years now, but they haven't closed the deal here. They didn't close the deal with Colin Kaepernick as well, back against the Ravens. So I know this is a different team, different coach too. So you don't think that, because this would make Mahomes 2-2, right, in Super Bowls? You don't think that
Yeah.
that people would just be, well, he just ran into a buzzsaw with the Niners.
Yeah, I think they would probably say because also a very interesting thing, the 49ers have been favored in every single game they played this year, which
Wow.
like it's like the fifth
Yeah.
time in NFL history or something like that
Yeah.
that's happened.
Yeah.
So I think part of it would be they just like ran into a buzzsaw. And also I feel like especially those that really love Patrick Mahomes will be like, well, he didn't really have the weapons to do it. The fact that he got this far is amazing.
Yeah.
And also like when you think about it, he did have quite the run. I mean,
Yeah.
they beat the Dolphins, the Bills, and then the Ravens. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Let me ask you this, because this I thought this was pretty interesting. On, I think it was the Today Show this morning, um where they had a quick clip of Mahomes saying, "Well, I'm just into my Super Bowl week routine," which which means that he obviously now has been there a lot in such a short period of time. Um, is there any? I can't imagine. We've had a couple of updates from our reporter on the ground there, your son-in-law. I mean, my son-in-law, your brother-in-law Tim, who now lives there, and it's funny, he had a few sightings, that he sent us today, but I can't imagine the distractions in Las Vegas, and it's been quiet for the teams, which has been good. However, I know the 49ers, I saw this morning that the fire alarm went off in their hotel room at like 6 in the morning or something like that. And that might have disturbed their sleep a little bit, but I don't think that's a big deal. Is there something to be said about the Chiefs being here a lot? Although the 49ers, a lot of their same team, there were a lot of players that were on the team when they were here last. But is there something to be said about going this often, like the Chiefs had, that'll prepare them better for Sunday?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Even just like the halftime alone, with it being as long as it usually like a lot longer than it usually is in a regular game, I think just kind of being there has that sense of what to expect.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I mean the Chiefs have been there what 4 times now in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they've been there, they know how to deal with it. And
Yeah.
also like something that's kind of just skirted along a little bit. I don't know if you saw Patrick Mahomes Sr. Was arrested like I think earlier in the week or
I
last week
was
with a
so
DUI.
disappointed to see that. I love Pat Mahomes. If you look at his season in 2000 or 99, I think it was 99. I know he's with the Mets for 2 years. 99, he was great. I mean, he came out of the bullpen. He started a little bit. I think he was 8-0, had a lower ERA. And I think in 2000, when they went to the World Series, wasn't as good, but he was so good for the Mets, and was actually a really good pitcher. All I was so disappointed to see that, but apparently I was reading that that's like his third time that he's got some issues.
Yeah, you want to hear stats?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so 99, he was 8-0 with a 3.68 ERA.
yeah,
He made where is it? 39 appearances.
mhm,
He finished 12 games actually. 63 innings, 37 walks, 51 strikeouts.
yeah,
An ERA plus of 121. So like
yeah.
better than the average guy.
Bobby Valentine used him as a starter, spot starter, long relief and short relief. He was really good. He got used all over the place. I don't think he started that year with them. I think they picked him up probably in May or June or something like that. Um, and then 2000 he was good, not as good as he was in 99. But yeah, I was surprised, but that that didn't seem to phase Mahomes Jr. though.
Nah.
Yeah.
And like I feel like if there's any Super Bowl where there's more distractions, not even just the Vegas factor, although I think that's part of it, but obviously like his dad with his issues, and then there's obviously the whole Taylor Swift thing and how that's brought
Yeah.
on a lot of just extra noise, and it really just hasn't phased him at all. And I think it does show how focused he can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and also like I mean you think about it, no one had the Chiefs going in
No,
come playoff time.
did the Chiefs really like bowl over everybody in the regular season? No. I mean, I know they still only lost 6 games, but There were times they didn't look as good, but maybe this is a team that is just so confident they're able to turn it on once the playoffs start. Um, I think the last thing I'll say, well, let me ask you this. Um, what are some of the keys then to the game? What are you looking for? And then we can throw out picks here. But what are you looking for? What are some of the keys here?
I think one of the biggest keys is San Francisco on defense has to make a big move. Um, right now, Patrick Mahomes, I forgot the exact number. He's had over 200 attempts without an interception. He's gone 6 games in the playoffs without committing an interception, which is an NFL record. He's really kind of. It's funny because I feel like Patrick Mahomes from a few years ago was more like gunslinger, putting up crazy stats. But now it seems like he's a lot more precise and deliberate about where he goes. And I think if the San Francisco 49ers are going to win this game, they have to have at least an interception. That to me will tell
Yeah.
who's going to win or lose the game.
Yeah. And he doesn't get sacked. Mahomes never gets sacked. I mean, he's
Yeah.
got eyes in the back of his head, he just doesn't get sacked. I agree with you on that. I think that um for me, the Chiefs defense is the key because we talk about Mahomes and Kelsey and the high flying offense of the Chiefs. I tell you what, man, is there a team that has more weapons than the 49ers? I mean,
Yeah.
just McCaffrey alone, but they've got a all-time great tight end. They've got a couple of great receivers that are faster than anything. And Purdy uses them, man. I mean, he gets out there and he uses them. And it's so hard. A lot of games you watch with the 49ers, the defense is so on their heels. They don't know if they're going to hand it off to McCaffrey or throw it. They use the play action well. They use the screens well with him. I think the Chiefs defense and knowing Andy Reid, he's got a good plan for it. I think the Chiefs defense is going to be the key to the game here because I do think the 49ers defense, they won't stop Mahomes. I think they'll contain him a little bit. I think they're not going to blitz a lot, because the blitz against him doesn't really work anyway. He's like, okay, come on in, and then he takes off. Um, but I think that they'll drop extra men into coverage to try to get him out of the pocket and then try to at least tackle him a little earlier. I think it's going to be a great game. This is a fantastic, fantastic matchup. I remember what I was going to say real quick before you mentioned the distraction that could have been Mahomes' dad. Um, Remember the only time the Chiefs lost was in that Super Bowl where right before Andy Reid's son had gotten into, that car accident and hurt that little girl really badly. And he was under the influence. And that seemed to be a big black cloud over them that whole week. And they said Andy Reid really wasn't the same, during that week. So no distractions here. I'll give my pick real quick first. Chiefs 27, 49ers 21.
I'm gonna go Chiefs 17, 49ers 14.
Wow. Okay.
Low
Low
scoring
scoring.
game.
Low scoring. All right. All right. Let's jump to the NBA. Um, we had the trading deadline and our New York Knicks, there are a lot of people saying that they should go to the finals now. I'm not sure I want to go that far just yet because I'm really worried about these injuries. Hartenstein got hurt last night. They were undermanned. They only had 8 guys last night. Charlie Brown and Snoopy. I mean, I'm sorry, Charlie Brown and 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 Jacob Toppin were playing. Those guys unfortunately never play. I mean, they held their own with Dallas for most of that game. Dallas pulled away in the fourth quarter, but I thought that was a game I didn't think that they would win. I don't know. The NBA has to kind of fix that because there were probably a lot of teams that were depleted. Any team that made a trade last night, they probably, they never, the guys are never like there. Maybe they should just, make that as a day off and give the teams a chance to get these new guys in, get their physicals, and so teams aren't playing so shorthanded. But that's a whole other story. What were your thoughts on what the Knicks did yesterday?
We kind of chatted a little bit about this, and I think overall, like from a big picture perspective, there wasn't that, because we had even talked about this a couple weeks ago. There really wasn't a big giant name moved. I
Right.
know Buddy Hield is probably the biggest name, if
Yeah.
not our guy now, Bogdanovich.
Yeah.
Um, but I think one of the biggest things is the Knicks kind of covered up some of their smaller holes in there. I mean, Bogdanovich is known for shooting. What was he? Over 40% from three? Like,
And he's
the
averaging
guy
20
is a
points a
shooter,
game. Yeah. He's
and he's
20-point
averaging
guy.
20 points a game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at it, first of all, he's probably going to be rejuvenated from going from a team that
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
could be like
Yeah.
one of the worst in NBA history to a team that I think definitely has an Eastern Conference Finals ceiling. Like, before I was like, things would kind of have to go their way. You know, the Bucks would have to kind of do what the Bucks have done and what Doc Rivers has done. Um, but I think right now they kind of maybe stack up better than the Bucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
of course, the Cavs are blistering hot. Hopefully that doesn't keep up. But um, like this has become a very exciting team.
Yeah.
And I know usually in the playoffs you kind of shrink your rotation a little bit. But I think one of the biggest things that the Knicks
Yeah.
have is
Yeah.
they have a very deep, I would go as far as to say 1 through 10.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
and I feel like there was, I mean, I talked about this a few weeks ago. It seemed like last year, if Jalen Brunson wasn't there, Knicks were done.
Yeah.
Or if Julius Randle was in foul trouble, or Mitchell Robinson had 2 fouls within the first 5 minutes, like, it was over.
Yeah.
But I feel like now they have enough depth that if he doesn't step up, DiVincenzo can go off for 7 3-pointers. Bogdanovich can go off for 35 on a given night.
Yeah.
Alec
Yeah.
Burks can give you 10 assists out of the
Yeah.
middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I think that they've really kind of, yes, they didn't get that superstar, and I'm glad they didn't, because like one of the things that worries me as a Knicks fan is how many times did we like seem like we're having a pretty good core, and then we trade for Steve Francis and blow it all up. Or I love Carmelo Anthony, like a top Knick in my lifetime, but also we traded the farm for him. So
Yeah.
like I feel like they've done a good job of keeping the guys that they have. Yeah, it stinks to see guys like Quentin Grimes gone, RJ Barrett, Manuel quickly
Yeah.
have a great core. And I think, yeah, this year, I think they can make the conference finals.
Yeah, and they're still young. Yeah, the guys they picked up yesterday aren't that young, but there's still a good young core, with them, and they still have most of their number one picks. They haven't dealt their number one picks; they dealt the number two ones. I agree with everything you said, and I know that Thibodeau. I was reading this morning that he loves that 9-man rotation. He's got to go 10 deep now with the guys that he has. I mean, you think about starting lineup now of Dante Brunson when Randolph and OG come back, and even let's just say Mitchell Robinson, who will probably be back around the same time now, as they thought he'd be out for the year, but it looks like he'll be back around the same time as Julius and probably OG. There, I mean, that's your starting five, and now you have Hartenstein, Burks, Bogey. Oh, do they call him Bogey? Bogey's the one who's on the Hawks, right? Now, all those guys related, there's like 3 Bogdanoviches in the NBA. There's one on Sacramento too who can shoot. And the one on the Hawks, I thought he was the best one until I looked at the stats. The one the Knicks got yesterday is the best one. I don't know if they're
Yeah,
related.
I get them all confused. I'm gonna see if I can find it though.
Then you have Deuce. I'm missing a couple of guys, but you get the idea. They've got Josh Hart. They go 10 deep, and Kendrick Perkins, who has really grown on me as a commentator, said that the Knicks are now deeper than the Pacific Ocean, and that they feel like in the East that they are now the deepest team. But here's where I'm not signing off on conference finals or finals yet. They've got to get healthy, and they got to get healthy because after the All-Star break can't come soon enough, right? Because they've got some tough games coming up, and then there's the break. And the break, I think, is what, 7 or 8 days, something like that. Now I know they've extended the basketball
Yeah.
All-Star break. It used to didn't be that long. They used to start playing again on Tuesday, after the Sunday All-Star game. But now there's they've extended it out a couple more days. Um, that'll help them, right? But what's going to be important is that as soon as OG came in, there was such a chemistry that we hadn't seen. When RJ and Quickly were there, which I hate to say that. Um, and even Obi Toppin, there was just a different chemistry right after that. I mean, still over 20 games, they've been 16-4. They lost to the Lakers, they lost to the Mavs these last couple of days, but um, I think they're going to need time. I want to say at least 15 games for the rotation to really, really gel the way it has been. It was a little bit of a fluke because of a guy like OG, how he came in and he was like the perfect fit. So it was a little bit of a fluke though, how quickly after a trade like that they gelled. Um, so that's my concern is the health. I think they did great yesterday. I think it was a great trade. You and I was the same. We didn't like when they first traded Alec Burks. I thought that second year when he was with the Knicks, that Thibodeau used him way too much. Remember, he put him in the starting lineup and he sat everybody else. And I thought, he's been through his whole career. He's been more of a role player. Let him play about 20 minutes a night. Great, not even a good. He's a great shooter. But now you got both these guys as shooters, man, and so I'm feeling good. I'll feel better when they get help. When I see Randolph back on the court, when I see OG back on the court.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is health. And yeah, I hope that they can get back it because I know Randall, it's about 3 weeks. Hopefully it's more on 3 weeks and not 4 to 5 weeks. Um
Yeah.
Also I did look it up. The Bogdanoviches are not related. Actually, Bohan, the Knicks one,
Right.
is Croatian, and
Oh,
Boban, do I have that right? The
right.
other one is Serbian. So they're not even the same nationality.
Isn't there one in Sacramento too?
I believe so. I have
Yeah.
to find him as well.
Yeah. What's the Hawks bogey they call him? Because we heard the Hawks announces that was all they were saying when they played them in the playoffs. Um what's he averaging for points per game?
Let's see here. Points per game. Where are you at?
Because he's really good too. I always thought he was the best one.
Oh, that's not right.
Yeah.
I just saw it for his career. 17 points a game this year.
Okay, so we got the best one. We got the best one, and they're not related. Okay, who else improved? I jotted some notes down here. I thought that OKC and the Suns really did extremely well yesterday. Because OKC gets Gordon Hayward, didn't really give up much for him, and Gordon Hayward, I know since he went to the Celtics, he's been injured a lot. But when he's healthy, the guy could still score 20 a game. And, hopefully they won't need to, because they're a pretty deep team, actually, OKC. Hopefully they won't need to use him more than maybe 15 minutes a night. But you have a veteran like that in the playoffs. I think that's going to bode well for them. The Suns, I thought this was a very under the radar move. The Nets made a couple of moves, but they got Royce O'Neal, who I've always liked him. He's a fast player, fast wing player, always plays great defense. And remember, I felt last year that the Suns had no bench. That if you just have these two guys, now they have three because Bradley Beal is finally healthy. But they need reinforcements when you get to the playoffs, and we saw it clearly in the Denver series, last year. But now they bolstered their bench a bit. I think they're going to be dangerous. So I thought that they made out really well. Who else did you think made out well?
I mean, I would have said OKC as well. I
Yeah.
think they really did a lot. It kind of seems like a lot of the teams that you would think should have added a little bit kind of didn't. I didn't
Yeah.
fully understand
Yeah.
the Bucks getting Pat Bev.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Patrick Beverly continues to be one of the more overrated players out there, especially the last few years.
Yeah. He gets traded a lot. He gets traded every year,
Yeah, like it seems like no one really likes him, but also everybody likes him.
Yes.
So I
That's
don't
very
know.
good. Yeah, yeah.
But I do
The
think
Lakers.
OKC really needed that. Lakers didn't do anything either.
Yeah, so I jotted down here the Lakers, the Bulls, the Warriors, and the Hawks. I thought that the Bulls was just going to clean house. I mean, because it's definitely not working, but they didn't do anything. Um, I was surprised the Warriors didn't add a piece or two. There was a lot of talk about maybe trading Andrew Wiggins to the Lakers. I didn't think that was going to happen to their rival out there. I didn't think that here you guys can have Andrew Wiggins. Um, and I was surprised that the Hawks 7 games under 500. I was surprised they didn't do one or the other, try to improve themselves, or just kind of blow it up a little bit because I think their window has kind of closed. But the Lakers, I think, out of those 4 teams I named, I was the most surprised that they didn't do anything.
Yeah, and like it's hard with the Lakers because I feel like they don't have a ton of pieces.
Yeah.
But also, as long as you have LeBron and he's still playing pretty well, like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, he's not the best player in the league anymore by a
Yeah.
long shot, but he's still really good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, he's still looking for at least another ring.
Yeah.
I think the Warriors should have kind of blew it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like especially with dynasties like them,
Yeah.
you kind of keep a hold of your guys a little bit too long, and that's what ends up taking a long time to recover. And kind of in the same way that you had LeBron with the Lakers, you have Steph Curry, who is still like the best 3-point shooter we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And if you get the right group around him, you just got to go for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it would have been a great opportunity, like kind of hit the reset. You love Klay Thompson, but I'm sure someone would love that expiring contract. Draymond Green he's kind of been more trouble than he's been worth this year.
Yeah.
You could have found someone that wanted to pick him up.
Yeah. I mean, those are some great points. I thought Minnesota stayed pat too, and when I thought about Klay Thompson, I thought maybe in Minnesota if they had picked up a guy like that. Again, you're looking now for these teams in May and June. How are they going to do when playoff time comes? And Minnesota is still not battle tested when it comes to running a deep run in the playoffs, but you have a guy like him, just like OKC picking up Gordon Hayward. I think that would have served them well, but I was surprised that some teams stood pat. Let's stay with the Lakers for a second. I I I got to see maybe the first 10 minutes of the Denver Lakers game on TNT after the Knicks game ended, and it was a playoff atmosphere in LA, but it was also they had the Kobe Bryant statue, or at least one of them. I believe they're doing another one, right? Because they had the one with him raising his hand, or maybe I think the other one is going to be outside, but I saw that there was some sort of ceremony, with that. But the Lakers hung with the Nuggets for a while last night, and again, I wasn't up in the fourth quarter, but Denver pulled away. They wound up winning by 8, but really showing that they can beat the Lakers. Remember, the Lakers for years had Denver's number, but doesn't seem to be the case anymore. What were your thoughts on the whole Kobe statue and where the Lakers are at right now?
Kobe statue is fun.
Yeah,
Um, I had seen a couple things where actually I saw a clip of him where they said like I think it was after he had retired. I didn't see the date on it, but they asked him like if they were to do a statue, what number would he want, 8 or 24? And he had said that he would want number 24 because for him it represents how harder it was towards the end to be at such a higher level.
yeah,
However, the 8 has an advantage because 8 Kobe could have hair and 24 Kobe couldn't, which I
yeah,
thought was funny.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I think that like, yeah, you have to have a statue of Kobe at this point.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you bring up how LeBron is still playing so well. He's probably almost matching Kobe because Kobe his last couple of years, I know he gotten hurt, but his last year, like those last like 20, 30 games, he was playing at the same level, it seemed like, because he was always in impeccable shape. He seemed like he was still playing at such a high level at an older, advanced age. All right, so basketball, big stuff. I know a couple of big games, and then you got the All-Star game next week. Let's jump to baseball. We still got a lot of guys not signed, and I mean, the rumors are really that the Mets will sign JD Martinez, but I don't think they. I think it'll cost them 2 years, 32 million to bring in JD Martinez, and I just don't think they want to spend that right now.
Yeah, but you gotta.
He's the perfect fit for the Mets, you know. I thought he was last year. You heard me like saying, hey, we should have got him last year. I'm surprised the Dodgers let him go after the year he had. 33 homers, 103 RBIs. You put him behind Pete Alonso. Oh my gosh. And you plug his name in every day as DH. You don't have to worry about that. And no shade on JD Stewart. I think he can be like their fourth or fifth outfielder because he played really well. But JD Stewart is not as accomplished as JD Martinez. DJ Stewart is not as accomplished as JT Martinez. It's a no-brainer for the Mets. So we said that we could go briefly because we'll do our baseball preview in another couple of weeks. Of what we thought about the off seasons so far for the Mets and Yankees. And I think both of them, aside from the possibility of Martinez, I think both teams are pretty much done. I don't think Blake Snell or Montgomery or Jorge Soler, Clay Bellinger, um, or even JD are coming to either one of these teams at this point. So I'll give you my Mets real quick, and then I want to hear you give some detail on the Yankees. Um, unlike a lot of Met fans, I'm actually pretty happy with their offseason to this point, right? Would I love to see JD? Yeah, I'm not confident that they'll do that. But as we look, we know Diaz is going to be back. They they really signed a lot of guys for their bullpen, which was their really, really big weak point last year. So they brought back Ottavino, great. Jorge Lopez was probably the most accomplished guy that they picked up. I think he'll do well. They picked up Fujihama from the Orioles, who is a wild card. He throws, 98 to 100, but he gets hit also. He spent part of the year with Oakland, then with the Orioles. I did like the Dykman trade, Dykman. Not trade, but signing. I thought that was pretty good. The other two guys they signed, Michael Tonkin, Austin Adams, total wild cards. I have no idea what they'll bring to the table, but they have a few guys coming back, like Drew Smith and Bickford. So I think that their bullpen will be better than it was last year. They've got some major league talent as opposed to last year. I thought a lot of guys they threw out there should have been in the minors. So I do like that they shored that up. I thought they shored the bench up a little bit with Joey Wendell. I think he'll be good. Tyrone Taylor, I think, is a serviceable, fourth, fifth outfielder. And the starting five is Senga, Quintana. They did go out and get Hauser from the Brewers, Manaya, from the Giants, and Severino. I think Severino, you're rolling the dice, but when Severino was good, he was good, but when he was bad, he was bad. I'll settle for an in-between Severino, one that's healthy, 28 to 30 starts, give me, a high threes ERA. I'll settle for that. I think, I'll take that. You do have McGill and Lucchesi, the back end of that rotation if they need them. Harrison Bader, I thought that was a good pickup. Starling Marte should be back and healthy. Supposedly he looks really, really good and he's healthy. So the guys that they picked up, I think some of them are wild cards, but overall, I think they needed that depth going into spring training and just sort it out, see who wins the spots. I like some of the signings. I wasn't expecting Blake Snell. He would be ideal for the Mets, obviously. He'd be more ideal for the Yankees actually as a left-hander, but the way things were going with now David Stearns and before how they said, we're not looking to contend big time in 2024. I really wasn't looking for the big signings. To me, the major thing is, okay, now you should have the money at the end of this year to lock up Pete Alonso. And I hate that he's going to go into free agency and that, he's a Scott Boras guy, which tells me that he's not even going to talk to them during the season now. But we'll have to, wait and see how that goes. It's never a bad thing when someone is in their walk year, though, in terms of production. I think he'll have a monster year because he's going to want to prove himself. And he's shown that he could play here in New York with the pressure and everything. So I would grade their offseason as a B. I think if they sign JD Martinez, it's an A for me, because I just wasn't expecting some of the big signings. So talk to me about the Yankees.
Before I do, have you seen I think it might have been before we got on. Former Mets GM Billy Epler
Yeah.
has been suspended for the year due to manipulation of the injured list.
I saw that. That's why I was glancing at my phone. Thank you for bringing that up. This is there is no way that Mets upper brass did not know about this and know that this was probably coming a few months ago when they let Epler go. Because to me, it was a head scratcher when Epler, it was like a mutual party, sort of like Buck. They fired both of them, right? And Buck, I understood a little bit because they were bringing in a new, they thought that was going to have that structure, right? Stearns was going to be the, head of baseball operations with a GM. Some teams do that. The Mets knew because Epler overall, they couldn't have thought that Epler did a bad job these couple of years. He had some good signings and good trades. Verlander and Scherzer just didn't work out the way we thought. I mean, Scherzer worked out for a while. I thought Verlander, if he had, been a little more healthier, would have worked out too. But I'm surprised somewhat that it's a year. But that, Kenny, what does that tell you? That tells you that they caught him red-handed and that they take that injury list stuff very, very seriously, because the disabled list has changed a lot over the last few years. Before you have 15-day disabled list, we never thought anything of that. But then they changed it to the 10-day and then that got to be scrutinized a lot more. But baseball, to say you're out a year, that I mean, the Mets had to have a hint that that was coming.
I agree. And I mean, it is like, because there's times where you're like, no way, that guy isn't actually hurt. Like, I feel like I see it all the time with the Yankees, but it makes me think, oh, maybe like, maybe Nestor Cortez was actually feel a little bit of something.
Yeah.
Or whoever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. The Mets definitely knew something was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the Yankees go, I'm gonna give them an A minus.
Oh wow.
I think going into the year
or
going into the offseason, their biggest need was their offense looked very putrid at the end of the year. They had two guys in their regular lineup that had an OPS plus of 100 or better, which means average. And that was Aaron Judge, who still missed 2 months of the year, and Gleyber Torres. Their left field production last year was last in the league. And they go out and they get Juan Soto, who was the most productive left fielder in baseball last year.
Yeah.
So taking your literal worst weakness and making it your biggest strength was so big. But also, like, there's going to be a lot of focus on Soto, and absolutely it should be that way. He's top 10 player in baseball. Guy gets on base like crazy. But really, a lot of the other guys that they got around him, Trent Grisham, he is the perfect bench player that the 2022-2023 Yankees, he would be playing every day. Like, he is the perfect bench player, guy that has great defense, can hit a little bit, and would be like a good late inning replacement.
Yeah.
Alex Verdugo is an above average hitter, a left-handed hitter at Yankee Stadium, a guy in his walk year trying to prove that the Red Sox kind of did him dirty. Bring it on. I feel like I look at this lineup this year where there were so many question marks. Aaron Hicks, I don't know what you're getting from him going into last year. Oswaldo Cabrera as a starting left fielder, even though he came up as an infielder. There was a lot of question marks with him. Josh Donaldson. And then, like, you don't know what you'd get from Harrison Bader, and Anthony Volpe, and a whole bunch of other guys. I feel like they did a really good job of making the offense a lot deeper, to where if you lose an Anthony Rizzo for a couple weeks, or Giancarlo Stanton, or God forbid Aaron Judge, you don't feel like you've kind of lost everything. So with the offense, I think they did a great job of rebuilding it.
Yeah.
I really like the Marcus Stroman signing. I think it was very solid. He's one of like 9 guys that's thrown over 450 innings over the last 3 years and have a sub 3.5 ERA. So like he's a really good major league starter.
New York won't
My
bother
biggest
him too. That's a big factor. New York's not going to bother him. He's from here, and he played those 2
yeah,
years with the Mets.
yeah, like he's not gonna be bothered. He loves like the extra energy. And I think like one of the things that's been missing from the Yankees the last couple of years is guys that kind of like when they get into a losing streak, everyone's kind of just like whatever. They don't have a guy that kind of fires them up. They don't have a Brett Gardner type or a Nick Swisher 2009 type. And I feel like Verdugo kind of fits that. I feel like Stroman kind of fits that. Soto has a little bit of that swagger too. So I think they have like the pieces that can really work well chemistry wise. And also their bullpen too. They picked up Caleb Ferguson from the Dodgers, Victor Gonzalez also from the Dodgers. And then they're going to be getting some guys back like Scott Efros. Ian Hamilton will be back as well. So I think their bullpen's going to be fine. There's going to be a little bit of like I don't know who's going to pitch where aside from Clay Holmes. But I think overall, the pitching, I'm still concerned that if an injury happens, this rotation is going to look really thin. Because their top 5 face against any other American League rotation, and I think they're pretty good.
Yeah.
With Cole, Rodon, Stroman, Cortez, Schmidt. But if any of those guys get hurt for any amount of time, that's when I get a little concerned.
Yeah.
Something else and I'm going to ask you this question. Because I had seen it and I was like, oh, maybe that's true. Is there any American League team that has improved as much as the Yankees this offseason? Because a lot of the big moves have happened, primarily LA. The Braves adding Chris Sale, it's an okay move, but like
Right.
Yankees got Juan Soto, and they also got Verdugo and Stroman. I don't know if there's an American League team that has done that caliber. What do you think?
I do think the Yankees had the biggest moves, but I think to match although they may regret it in another year or two, because I was reading, I didn't realize that they traded the #1 prospect in the whole country. I think the Orioles getting Corbin Burns. You and I have talked about him for the last year. Thought he would have been perfect for the Yankees. But I think adding a Cy Young winner and he's in his walk year, but they have new ownership. I was going to say there's no way the Orioles will sign him long term, but might be a new philosophy in Baltimore because they're going to have new owners. I think that kind of matched the Juan Soto move because they filled a huge need. They've got a stud now, #1 starter who he rarely gets hurt. He'll be out there, his 30 starts a year. And I think that was just a great trade, but I think the Brewers got some really, really good prospects, but you just never know how those work out, as we've known a million times in the past. But I think if you're talking about the overall offseason, yeah, I think the Yankees in the American League definitely had the best offseason. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you can't be the Dodgers getting Otani and Yamamoto, but
No, yeah, yeah. Um, so I'll just say this for the Yankees. I texted you this, especially because of the Orioles and because I think but Tampa, they lose guys. I know they lost Glasnow to the Dodgers, but man, oh man, I can't see them not being another 90-95 win team again this year. It seems like they are every year. The Orioles, I think, are in it for the long run. Who knows with the Red Sox? They're a little bit of a wild card. But to me, and the Blue Jays are the Blue Jays. I mean, they're probably going to lose Chapman, but I mean, they got Justin Turner to kind of take his place. Turner can still play. Um, I think it's so important, Kenny, that the Yankees get off to not a great start. I'm talking about like 20 and I'm talking about like 30-10 in their first 40 games type of start. I think that's going to be so vital. I mean, Tampa got off to that type of start last year, leveled off, but they still got into the playoffs. I think it's going to be so important that the Yankees come out, firing on all cylinders early.
yeah, I agree. because if you're 5 games back, you're not. It's going to be harder to come back from that.
Yeah. Not in that
Uh,
division. I mean, that's I'll say it now. I mean, I still moves to be made, right? With some of these big players, but that's the best division, man, in baseball. If you just stack up those four teams, right? The Jays. I mean, you face it. Think about this. The Jays didn't make the playoffs last year, right?
nah,
I mean, and they got star after star after star on that team, and they played well. I mean, I'm sure they won more than 90 games, but that division is they're going to be beating each other up, and now with the Yankees being as improved, but the Yankees need to be the front runners early here and let these other teams do the chasing. You know, I think and I think they will. I really do. I think for the Yankees that they know everything you just said. And when they arrive this week, right? The spring train, they're gonna look around and say, man, we got some really good players here. We're deeper than we have been in the last 4 or 5 years. We need to prove this. They look around that locker room, they see Soto, Verdugo, Stroman. I think so. Go ahead.
um, and you said getting off to a good start. I've looked at it, but I haven't fully looked at it. Here's their first 4 series: at Houston, at Arizona, hosting the Blue Jays, hosting the Marlins, and then they head to Cleveland.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They need to come out,
that,
man. Yeah. Yeah.
especially like,
Yeah.
so it's a 4-game series against Houston. Let me double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's 4-game series. Yeah. Um, if they win 3 out of 4 against the Astros, Juan Soto hits a giant home run
Oh yeah.
off
Yeah.
of Framber Valdez.
Yeah.
Like that'll get like the juices flowing right away.
Yeah. They're going to be a fun team to watch, man. I know they're going to be on TV a lot. They're going to be a fun team to watch. But boy, oh boy, if it goes south early, oh my gosh. I don't think Aaron Boone would survive through June if they are like hovering around 500. I think I don't know who the Yankees would put in his spot, but I think that the expectations are back. It feels almost to me like the expectations that the Yankees have had in the past, um, even the teams that flopped, the Randy Johnson, Jason Giambi teams that you thought were just gonna, just mull through everybody and they didn't. I think the expectations on this team is gonna be good, but rightly so. I think they're gonna be they should definitely make either a deep run or be back in the World Series this year. I'm really we haven't, we'll do our preview soon, but I like the Yankee team. I really do. I'm sure you do as well. Uh,
Yeah. There's a lot of optimism
yeah,
as opposed to last year. We're like a lot of questions,
yeah.
but there's a lot of optimism.
Hey, last quick note before we go to inspiration. I saw something earlier this morning that Trevor Bauer says he'll play for the major league minimum. Just to get a shot. With a team. I guess this is spring training. I usually don't watch any spring training games, but I think what I'll follow is this story. I mean, although you did say, a team might bring him in under the radar in May or June or something like that, which I think there's a chance of that, but I don't think he'll take that chance. I think he'll probably go and pitch somewhere else if somebody doesn't pick him up in spring training, but I don't know. How are you feeling? You still feeling the same way with him?
Yeah. So I'll read because I saw that also.
Yeah.
This is his tweet. He was replying, and this is a guy that's I've seen him a few times, Gary Sheffield Jr.
Yes.
He's replying to his tweet. So I'll read both of them real quick. So Gary Sheffield says Trevor Bauer is willing to play on an incentive-based contract with league minimum guarantees and is liked by teammates despite the media continuing to lie otherwise. That's risk-free. Signing a player fans perhaps dislike is not a risk. They aren't going anywhere long-term. And so Bauer says, Blake Snell is going to get hundreds of millions of dollars on a multi-year deal, and he should. He deserves it. For a team that doesn't want to commit multi-years, hundreds of million dollars, or many elite prospects for a Cy Young Award winner, they could sign me for league minimum and pay zero incremental dollars over what they have to pay for that roster spot anyway. Just another option for teams that want to win and don't want to break the bank. Um, yeah, I think what he'll end up doing is going to Japan and probably having some kind of clause where if a major league team offers him a contract, he's out of his contract in Japan. But I don't know if anyone's taking a risk on him. Um, I don't think anyone's going to take a risk on him until an ace goes down on a big league staff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's say Yamamoto, God forbid, gets hurt in spring training and has Tommy John surgery. Then maybe the Dodgers would go after him, but I don't think the Dodgers would.
Yeah.
Um, but like he needs, it's hard to say this because you don't wish this upon anyone, but he needs a team to lose a big player. Yankees lose Garrett Cole, God forbid. I think they would consider Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this whole story. Not in a good way. I would rather we're not talking about all the stuff that occurred. But man, I mean, God is a God of second chances, and especially if you're, I mean, we don't have to rehash everything, especially if you're not guilty of a crime like that. So Gary Sheffield Jr. was essentially saying that he was a good teammate.
Yeah, he's saying
Yeah.
because like that's been another thing. Because especially with the Yankees, there's been the Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer kind of have had beef, and I mean, in Bauer's interview on WFAN, he said it a couple times. Like, there's so many people that think that I've been an awful teammate, but there's been like I have dozens of people that could vouch for me that I'm a good teammate. And
Well, why aren't they
yeah, I
doing
don't know.
that though? I mean, you and I talked about the Dodgers they still have some of the most respected veterans. They don't have Justin Turner anymore. Justin Turner, I think, is very well respected throughout the majors, right? But Clayton Kershaw, Mookie Betts, guys like that um people look up to. And I know he wasn't on the Dodgers long, but why haven't they said anything? If that's
Right.
true, I mean, that could just be his perception, but maybe it's true or not. And we always talked about someone like Terry Francona, who everyone loves and respects, Hall of Fame manager in both of our opinions. He never said a word that, hey, somebody picked this guy up. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. All right, ready for some inspiration?
Yeah.
All right, I got a little bit to read. I'll be really fast and I'll sum some of it up. We probably talked. I'm sure we've talked about him before, but to me, still the greatest play ever in Super Bowl history is the helmet catch. I still can't get past that. And you think about historically how the Giants won those two Super Bowls. Where would the Patriots be historically if they had won those two Super Bowls and not and not the Giants? But I digress. David Tyree um has been such an inspiration, such an outspoken man of God. And I'm not sure we spoke about his backstory. He was quite a drug person, party person in high school as well as in college. Now, he was the captain of Syracuse. Um, but it says he was team captain for Syracuse, but he was an all-star partier too. Somehow I found myself drawn to a girl on campus who shied away from that scene. Lila had the most adorable sleepy brown eyes. I talked her into giving me her number. We hit it off. She was not only beautiful, but smart as well, a nursing major. She really had her act together. But from the outside, it looked like I did too. I had a wonderful girl, a supportive family, and in 2003, I landed a job of my dreams, pro football player for the New York Giants. But if college was one big party to me, the NFL was a never ending bender. Lila begged me to get clean. She started reading the Bible, exploring her faith. But me, I didn't have time for that stuff. I was living in the fast lane. Then at the end of my rookie year, I got pulled over for speeding. My car reeked of marijuana. Do you have anything in here that I ought to know about? The officer asked in a voice that said that he knew that I did. He searched the car and found a bag of pot under the seat. I was arrested. You know that expression, rock bottom? Well, I hit it, literally. There I was, sitting in a holding cell, staring at the cement block walls. What had I been doing with my life? I needed to change. Was it too late to ask God for help? I didn't know where to start. So I looked up, clasped my hands like I'd seen people do, and said, Lord, I need you right now. If you could spare my job, I'd really appreciate it. I wanted a chance to make it up to Lila and my family. I was released the next day, and eventually the charges were dropped. God had heard me. That weekend, I drove to see Lila in Syracuse. I wanted to clear my head, tell her how sorry I was for being a lousy boyfriend, and that I wanted to change. I walked into her room. That's when I noticed it, a Bible lying in the middle of her perfectly made bed. I don't know how to say this or if I expect anyone to believe it. There was something about that Bible, something physical. No joke. It looked like it was glowing. I felt myself reach out for it almost the way I would reach out for a pass. And that way, that time seemed to slow down when you're doing something incredible. I picked it up, turned to the first page. Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. I read more, and God said, "Let there be light." It's not like I had never opened the Bible before, but for the first time, the words on the page really made sense, as if their meaning was brought to life. God was real, and he was in control, not me. That was the answer. Lila and I had a long talk. I feel like I can finally get my life together, I said. David, are you really going to make that commitment? She asked. I couldn't blame her for doubting me, but less than a week later, I completely lost my desire for drugs and alcohol. God was already working in me. I really wanted Lila to know that I was serious. So a few weeks later, I proposed. We were married in a small ceremony. My family was ecstatic, especially mom. She was so proud to see her son finally settle down. And so
Huh.
David Tyree's story obviously got better. The Giants gave him a second shot. And of course, he makes his catch in the Super Bowl, which really, seals the deal. What year was that he made that catch in the Super Bowl? Do you know?
2008.
2008. Um, his career wasn't that great after. He bounced around a little bit. um, if I remember right, he was a punt returner mostly, right? And they put him in wide receiver sometimes. David Tyree, because of that catch, because it was on the big stage. If he made that catch in a regular season game, remember Odell made the one-hand catch and it was in a regular season game. Not too many people talk about that much anymore. People still talk about Tyree's catch because it was in the Super Bowl, and if I remember, it was a fourth down play, and Eli scrambled, and it was just amazing. It really was. To me, that still is the best play in Super Bowl history, in my opinion. Um, but David Tyree, because of that, the doors open so much for him. He's a motivational speaker now, but he speaks about God. He go everywhere he goes. He talks about his faith. He talks about all this stuff, how he hit rock bottom and how he came to the Lord. And so many people have been, impacted from just that one moment, because he wouldn't have, I think, had the audience that he has now, if he hadn't made that catch, in the Super Bowl. He would have been kind of a footnote in history. But instead, God put him on the stage. I mean, it's still just impossible to catch it on your helmet. I remember it was Rodney Harrison, right, that went up with him. And Rodney Harrison still says, I don't know what to say. I have no idea how you caught that. Well, I think God, placed him in that moment for a reason. And now all these years later, he still talks about his story to, thousands of people a year. So David Tyree, Super Bowl weekend, my inspiration.
Well, speaking of amazing play or amazing runs against Tom Brady, that's actually my inspiration
Yeah.
is Super Bowl inspired. It's a little bit of a career arc of one Nick Foles, who
Yeah.
obviously is one of two quarterbacks ever to beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl. The other one is up for the Hall of Fame next year. I don't know if you saw that, Eli Manning.
Oh, he's getting in.
Yeah.
He's got to get in. Yeah.
But it's funny because a lot of people, they just know Nick Foles as the guy that was backing up Carson Wentz in the 2017 season. He was originally drafted by the Eagles back in 2012, last year of Andy Reid's stint with the Philadelphia Eagles. He got into a couple games late in the season, backing up Mike Vick. And so he kind of got a little bit of a cup of coffee that time, and then was back up for a few more years before he gets traded to the St. Louis Rams. He was actually he was there in exchange. He was traded for another great legend, Sam Bradford. And he was there as kind of quasi backup on the really bad Rams teams that just really couldn't go anywhere. And And then, of course, the Rams draft Jared Goff, which, of course, like we know how that ended.
Yeah.
But Nick Foles from there, once he saw, okay, they just drafted a #1 overall pick, I don't have a shot. So he had asked for his release. And at that point in his career, he was like, well, I've been a backup. I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to actually start. So he, on the side, has been taking courses and really feels the call to ministry.
Wow.
Was very, very close to becoming a youth pastor while he's trying to get his master's of divinity. But then he gets a call from one Andy Reid and says, hey, you want to come to this team, the Kansas City Chiefs? And so he ends up signing as backup there, gets into a couple games here and there. He's a backup for Alex Smith. So he signs a 2-year deal with an option to opt out, and then he exercises the opt-out before the 2017 season and then becomes the backup to Carson Wentz, and we know how that story ends for him, becoming probably one of the most improbable quarterback runs that we've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Because Carson Wentz, like, I know it's weird to say it now, but Carson Wentz was going to be the MVP if he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
But yet, there they were, and Nick Foles ends up winning the Super Bowl, one of the greatest games of all time in like recent Super Bowl history.
No doubt.
But it does kind of go to show you how important God's timing is, because I don't think it's ever wrong to go into ministry. Imagine the timing of him going in when, like, if he had actually just gone and became a youth pastor and missed out on being a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
So sometimes, God calls you to stuff, but just as important as God's calling is God's timing. So shout out to Nick Foles.
Yeah. That's a great one. I find it so interesting. And you and I are going to have an assignment. I want us to watch the Minister of Defense. That's been a 30 for 30 on ESPN. And it's the story of one Reggie White. And I've watched maybe about the first 20 minutes of it. It's compelling. You'll really like it. But I want to maybe save that discussion for then. This is the most violent sport there is, football. Yet we have so many men of God playing this very violent sport. And I've often wondered how that reconciles. And maybe we'll have a discussion around that, especially after we watch one of the greatest defensive players of all time, violent, in Mr. Reggie White, went on to become a pastor and unfortunately, died. We can't question God's timing, but for me, died way too soon. I think at the age of 42, in his sleep. So, anyway, good stuff. Excited about the Super Bowl. We both picking the Chiefs. Here we go. Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
Take us home, man.
Very quick. Do you want to hear Morneau versus Jeter stats in 2006? I have.
Yeah, go ahead. It's interesting.
All right.
Totally forgot that Justin Morneau won the MVP. He was a good player.
And it might be deserved. 321, 375 on base, 559 slugging, so 934 OPS. Pretty good. 34 home runs, 130 RBIs.
130 RBIs. That's, I love that. He was knocking in runs. He was hitting 3-run homers,
And a 140 OPS plus. So he was very good.
Yeah, great year.
Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
343, 417, 483, 900 OPS. Significantly higher on base. 14 home runs, 97 RBIs, but also 34 stolen bases and 39 doubles.
Yeah.
So
that's a great
understandable. Year. So I don't know.
What was his batting average again? Jeter's?
343.
He batted 343. Yeah, he should have won.
And he also had 214 hits.
Yeah. Did the Twins win the division that year? I think they did.
I believe so. Because they probably got swept by the Yankees.
Yeah, they were. They were in the playoffs, I'm sure. Neither one were in the World Series, but still, Jeter should have won it that year. That was he was right in the peak of his career then. He should have definitely won it that year. Right, he was 10 years in, right? Because he came up in 96. So anyway, all right, take us home.
Anyhow, this is Kenny Squared End.
Kenny,
with Sports on the Positive Tip. Have a great Super Bowl weekend, everyone.
Enjoy the game. We'll talk about it next week.